You join me with my new B450 build with the Ryzen 7 Pro. Now, this is back in December, but there is a problem. Notice when I snooze that process that's running 100% of the CPU, you hear this clicking sound in the background. See if you can hear it. It happened just when the CPU went from maxed out to idle. It's a sort of chirping sound you hear, and it's not the hard drive. There it is. Let's remove the side panel and take a closer look, or listen, should I say. There it is. Even more pronounced down here, and you'll hear the hard drive seek in between. That was a hard drive seek. And when I click the CPU into 100%, we have a hard drive seek, but the screeching goes away. And the fans ramp up. But that horrible sound is gone. That is a dodgy VRM. And that is why I'm no longer using a B450. So I looked at alternatives. I could have replaced it with the B450 from another brand. That was an option. All of them by this time had the BIOSes to support the new Ryzen 5000 and 4000G CPUs. But it was inevitable that I had to replace the motherboard. So out all of this goodness comes, and then we can upgrade it to something new. I had a very stubborn SATA cable here.
What the fuck is up with that SATA board?
But eventually it came out. In the process of removing the motherboard screws, I also managed to get a few screws inside the case, but that's not a problem. All you have to do is just hold the case in there, shake it about vigorously, and the screws should drop out. Another thing I'm going to do in this upgrade is upgrade the cooler from that 37mm Noctua to a 65mm Noctua. And out falls the screws. Easy peasy. Now there's our old B450. And here is our new B550. This is the Gigabyte Oros. Yes, I remember that from a kid when I was a kid. So Oros is their top of the line motherboard, and I really wasn't looking for that, but I just decided get B550 and you'll be future proof. I mean, just look at all that metal at the back providing cooling for the VRMs. This is a very steady board, and if you haven't watched the Gamers Nexus review on it, I suggest you do. Time for some peel action. Oh yeah. And the 65mm high cooler I'm using is this Noctua. Now the fan is the smaller 10mm fan. It's not a 25mm like I've got on the 37mm, but it did the job very well. In fact, the CPU maxed out on this cooler ran colder than on the 37 with a bigger fan. What you see there is a manual. I can highly recommend reading that before you start. I did not. And I wasted some time, which is sort of a common theme. So attaching that bracket to the cooler right now, you can see the problem is, how am I going to attach it to the motherboard, because the cooling fins are in the way of that. But anyways, let the fool run his errands. Instead, what you should be doing is placing these standoffs, mounting that bracket, and then at the end mount the CPU cooler to it. Almost busted a hole in the new motherboard there with a screwdriver. Gotta be careful there. Back on the B450. It's time to take off all the stuff we've got on it. That's my D drive, which is actually my work PC. I run in Hyper-V, and the nice 37mm Noctua cooler there coming off. Now this is used in the last video that you saw where I upgraded my server. That's exactly where this cooler went. Just going to wiggle it side to side because I have no intentions of pulling out the CPU along with the cooler. Although it shouldn't happen. I mean, this is a week after I made the initial B450 video. So that heat base is still nice and fresh. Oh, nice and clean. Clean it off like a professional do with a wet wipe. And I have actually noticed a lot of other YouTubers use wet wipes, especially Techie City. I'm cleaning off the cooler before it goes into my Ryzen 5 3400G server build. Last video, check that out. Back to the Oros board. The cooler connect or standoffs is mounted nicely, plopping in the new APU. A generous dose of the provided Noctua heat paste before we screw on that cooler and see if this actually solved the problem. Now they say you can screw it in without removing the fan, but if you are a buffoon like me, then you end up bumping off the fan, and well, that makes it a bit easier to screw it in with the fan off. But you don't have to, if you work carefully. And off comes the fan. Back on goes the fan. So, plug in the fan and see if this was a success. And yes, it was. Listen to how quiet this is. Now here it is under load, finishing off Cinebench. And here I remove the panel, Cinebench is done, and it's just so quiet. So I'm very happy with this result. I will go a lot further with a B550 than I would with a B450. Sitting at idle there. Thanks for watching.